Good morning and welcome to the 2020 Galveston Mayoral and Candidate Forum. We are live here at the beautiful Sea Star Base, Galveston. Thank you for joining us. I'm Gina Spagnola. I'm the President and CEO of the Galveston Regional Chamber of Commerce, and we are so proud to co-host these forums with our partners for 175 years, the Daily News. Michael Smith, thank you so much. We had a good day yesterday.
It was a very good day, very informative and enjoyable experience. I'm glad to be back.
We're glad to be back, and we're here with one of our candidates, Bill Quiroga. He's representing District 4. Unfortunately, Councilperson Jason Hardcastle couldn't make it. He had a prior commitment, so stay with us. We're going to get to spend some really good quality time with Mr. Quiroga. Thank you so much for those of you that have submitted questions. As you know, it's terribly important to get this right and to understand the candidates' platforms, and that's why we're bringing it to you so you can make a really good and educated decision for your district and for Galveston. So with that, welcome, Mr. Quiroga. We're so happy that you could be with us today.
Thank you to the Chamber as well as Galveston Daily News, and the facilities here are fantastic. I'm really impressed of what Galveston can offer to different organizations to come to the island.
So beautiful. Yeah, well, I was surprised that a couple of candidates had not been to this facility, but it's just one of the many things that Galveston has to offer.
Yes.
So Roger, thank you for your time.
Bill,
sorry. Two Quirogas, and I knew that. Bill, thank you so much, and thank you, Michael. And we will have you start, if you don't mind. We'll start with the questioning, and we're going to spend about 30 minutes.
Mr. Quiroga gets his
Your
2 minute
2 minutes.
introduction.
That's right.
to have 2 minutes.
2 minutes to say whatever you want about yourself, your platform.
Okay. I have 2 minutes since my opponent's not here. Can I venture over since we have plenty of time, or?
Well, I think we ought to stick to the format.
Okay, not a problem. I'm going to change it a little bit, the way that I'm going to make a presentation. I'm known through Galveston, through a lot of business people. Everybody knows me. A lot of people like me, a lot of people don't like me. But the way that I want to start this thing off is, one of the advantages of being second or third is you can hear what the mayor's candidates have said and some of the council people have said, and the candidates running for their political office. One of the things that I want to present is the case of why I feel that we need change in the system. And when I'm talking about the system, we need change both the council system as well as the manager system. And I hear a lot of feedback from the constituents, and let me bring it down so a lot of people don't know what that word means. The voters in District 4, but it pertains on a whole, because everyone knows this type of government, it doesn't matter who's on the council, you need 4 votes to get anything done. Either the mayor and 3, or the mayor and 3, or 4 council people themselves to get anything done. With the only exception, I believe now, when we have an emergency, whether it's a storm or whether, I guess if they're using this as a pandemic. But I don't want to be a doom and gloom candidate, but I've heard in the preparations that I made, because I have a background in engineering, I do a lot of analysis, and I hear a lot of talk about the input of the city and their finances. Trust me, it's not as bright as it seems. And I'm going to present, in between the questions I'm asking, the time I have allocated to me, that I'll present some of this evidence to you. So, I wish I had a clock.
Your time's up.
Okay.
Okay, you ready for your first question?
Ready for the first one? Shoot.
Okay, would you describe to us District 4 as you see it? Not necessarily the geography, but the character and personality, the challenges, problems, and opportunities that you see in District 4.
District 4 is it's diverse demographics. You have people of wealth, meaning the Cedar Lawn area. You have people lower means throughout the district. It was set up primarily as a Hispanic district, but as time went on, we had gerrymandering where part of the heavily area of the Hispanic community was filtered out. And I look at this as more or less a political move rather than helping the citizens of Galveston in District 4. But primarily, it's diverse. You have well-to-do people. You have people that are living check by check. You have not very many businesses, because I represent part of from 39th all the way to 61st, where you have most of your businesses. You have schools there, and then it cuts over to 61st Street, but primarily it's all residential.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. You did talk about that there weren't a lot of businesses within that within your district, but overall, when we talk about the business community in Galveston, how do you feel through this pandemic and through the mandatory orders that they've been treated primarily? Are represented primarily, you and I did have a conversation about this, but the chamber not being invited to the table and not having a seat representing the small business community, is that something that you would be in favor of, is giving the small businesses a voice at the table?
I'm glad you brought that up. And the COVID pandemic is serious, and the statement I'm going to make, it's not that I'm not sympathetic towards people, but I look at numbers and how it's being laid out. In Galveston County, we have 342,000 population. Out of the 342,000 population, we have a death rate of just came out in the Galveston Daily News, by the way. A plug for you, Mr. Smith.
So it's accurate.
We have 161. That equates to less than 0.5%. So when you look at that, and the economy that it's hurting in Galveston, the chamber, with all of its business people, should have an input at the table. I'm pro-business. I believe, the chamber is doing a good job.
Thank you.
But we need more input from the businesses. It looks like the city, I hear this constantly, every election, the city is anti-business. And I'm going to bring up two issues. Do I have 2 minutes?
You've still got time on your two. You still got
Okay,
a
to
minute.
give you a good classic example is a lot of business people don't want to run for the office because they fear retaliation. I've had talks with different people, and I'm going to give you a good one. I was very stunned that the city manager sent a letter to the city, to the chamber, stating that if they would turn around and endorse a candidate, that they would look at it legally to see if the funding at the city, the port, and the Galveston Park Board, they would take out their money. That's the first time in history. I've been voting since the last 51 years, and this is the first time that I've ever known that the Chamber of Commerce has been challenged. My question is, why didn't they do it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? And basically it boils down, it's all politics.
Thank you, Mr. Kroga. I want to take you back a little bit to your opening statement and get you to clarify what you mean when you say you need to change the government. Are you talking about changing the form of government to something besides a manager-council form, and how would you go about doing that?
2 minutes. Can you give me a midpoint?
Yeah.
Okay. To answer your question, yes. I think we need a total different form of government. When I was a child, I remember the form of government we had was a commission form of government where you had one over traffic, one over finance, and so on and so forth. And the history was it was changed because there was corruption. But no matter what form of government you have, you're going to have corruption or someone using it for their advantage. For every good thing that humans have, through the centuries, had come out and tried to promote humanity, somebody's going to use it to their advantage. But yes, I totally believe in changing the form of government. And the reason why is the council is weak, and what I mean by weak, I'm going to give you a good example. My sister sent in a letter to then Terrell and Tarleton about the streets being potholed. well, have a lot of potholes in it. And it's continuous. Every 2-3 years they back out there instead of fixing it right. So she sent that over to the city manager, Mr. Maxwell. He sends a letter back saying that the council people don't direct them on what to do. Now, I have letters, showing all that, because when I make a statement, I have all of the information I need, which is on record, whether it's a city government, whether it's from Galveston Daily News. If it's in print, it's free game. But yes, I would like to see the government change, and it's going to have to be one where the group and the citizens of Galveston need to come together and decide what form. The form that we have presently now is sometimes, like I say, the council is kept in the dark. And I will elaborate on that a little bit later if the question comes up.
Thank you.
Oh, and we've lost our sign.
mine?
That's okay. You're good. We're going to keep on.
That's embarrassing.
Mr. Kroga, how, regarding the tourism industry, what is your position on the tourism industry and vacation rentals, short-term rentals? There's some controversy in that. Talk a little bit about that.
Tourism is one of the biggest industries we have here, and I support it because it supports a large tax base, the hot tax, as well as taxes being paid back to the city. I called Jeff Sostrom, who is the director of the economic development, to get some information of how we're doing. According to him, and I was amazed that the sales tax revenue is down 2%, which I thought was kind of small, but you're still generating quite a bit of sales tax revenue. The hot tax is down 25%. Again, a lot depends on the COVID. The COVID is something, again, that I like to go back to, is having less than a 0.5% death rate. And like I said, I'm not insensitive to the people that have died from COVID. I had my nephew 2 weeks ago. He passed away. So
Oh, no,
I'm
sorry.
not insensitive. But when it comes to the economic system that we need to support in Galveston, I believe we need to open up the city.
You still have a minute.
Okay? And the city needs to be opened up. Basically, everyone needs to get together. When you have an outreach like we have in the city government, it was done too soon, too fast, without the data being present. Like I say, having the background engineering, I look at data to prove, yes, we need to shut it down. No, we don't need to shut it down, because it is a impact, environmental, not only environmental impact, but also a economic impact to all the people that work here on the island.
I'd like to just do a follow-up, if I could, with that 2%. Did Mr. Sostrom describe that 2% in that mainly that represents the big box stores that are here, the Home Depots, the academies, the places that were essential?
Well,
that doesn't necessarily represent the small businesses that are struggling to stay in business and are closing their businesses. And so it could be skewed somewhat because there are businesses that have thrived.
Well, I'm not going to challenge Mr. Sostrom on the numbers.
Yeah,
he
no,
gave
it's not
me.
a challenge. I just wanted people to be aware that that is a representative of a lot of the bigger businesses.
Well, how Mr. Sostrom collects his data, I don't know, but I sure would like to know. But 2% is not too bad of a hit.
No.
But that shows that a lot of people still going out, and it reflects the total economy to Galveston.
Yes, sir.
And doing an investigation, I'm impressed on the amount of monies that the city received. In the city of Galveston, the taxable properties are right about $6.4 billion. That's a lot of revenue to be taxed on. And I believe approximately 106 million of that is general obligation bonds that are being paid. So if you break it down, the amount of monies that we receive taxable property equates to 121,000 per capita. That means every man, woman, and child. As far as what I like to focus on is the general bonds. That equates to $2,000 per obligation, man, woman, and child in Galveston, which are staggering numbers.
What's your assessment of city staffing? Are there too many, too few? Are they overpaid, underpaid? And be specific about which departments you think are overpaid or underpaid.
Well, I'm going to answer your question this way. As a person that does analysis, I can't give you an exact number of too many people overpaid. I can give you some what people are talking about, but I cannot give a specific quote on this or that without looking at the data. Like I said, I look at data, then I can see what the budget, what are we paying our employees? Do we need to transfer money? Do we need to cut staff? That all depends on the needs assessment that I need or have the city manager give to help plan on the budget for the fiscal year. So I'm not trying to dodge your question. All I'm trying to say is I need analysis where I can make a good decision. And that's what basically the city council as well as the city staff needs to do, is make the correct decision on what are the actual needs to the city of Galveston. They need to be good stewards of the tax dollars that they're controlled over. And as everyone knows, that the stewards are the city council. They need to, and basically what I've seen is Galveston is not in good shape regardless of what you've been hearing from some people. You go back to the CAFA, which is the Galveston Financial Report. That is showing you exactly the status of the island. According to its rating, we won't have money for raises. And if anyone needs a breakdown, I had the breakdown to the CAFA showing you all the mismanagement that's been done and the reality of where the monies are being spent or not being spent. So instead of me going through all this, it's because it's time consuming to explain, because I'm pretty sure we'll have some counter questions on why this or why that. So anyone, and I'll give you this, it's galvestonfirst@yahoo.com. You want any of this information, I'll be more than glad to give it to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Quiroga, what would your first 3 months look like? How would you set your priorities for your district?
You know, again, it's so hard because you try to look at a particular needs for the district. What I plan to do, if I have the privilege of being elected to the district, is have what I would call an executive board within the district, where I would take 2 people from business, 2 people from the residential area, that we sit down and we would iron out what the needs for the district are. But we also have to take in consideration the needs of the business and the finances of the business, if we can support whatever needs to be done within that district.
Right now, what are you hearing from your district? What's their number one concern moving forward?
Well, the biggest complaint is, again, finances. I wrote an article in the Galveston Daily News about the fiasco on 45th Street.
Oh.
And when I did my research on it, I asked for 2 things. Basically, I wanted to know, was there a feasibility study and what was the cost overruns? And at that time, I was presented with it. And anytime you have a cost overruns, what catches that is a feasibility study. That tells you they would have caught everything that needed to be repaired, and the economics could have been adjusted for that. You just don't plan a project and then in the middle of the stream you change it, because everyone like myself and everyone in the business world knows that the impact of more money being generated is through change orders. It's outrageous what we've been charged, over close to $4 million cost overrun. So I've been hearing a lot of that feedback. You know, we have a lawsuit. The Tom Thumb generated a lawsuit, and all they had to do was just go down there and talk to the owners to know what their needs are. And this is what needs to be done. We need to be open and not be afraid to talk to some of the residents and business owners out there, because we know sometimes it can get heated.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Quiroga, going back to some statements you made just a minute ago about the breakdown of the bond debt burden per capita, elaborate on that a little bit. Are you arguing that Galveston has too much bond debt and shouldn't take on any more? Exactly what were you arguing there?
The argument is this. I believe in history, and what I'm saying is I look at the people that have been elected to the city. In 2016, there was an article that was written by Doug McLeod, and I elaborate on it by saying it's truth. And basically, what I'm leading up to is a lot of the propositions that were sent out, that was being proposed, was to benefit some of the council, and he used the words, giving them perks. Well, in saying that, you turn around and you look at the amount of monies we're spending. To get back to your question, we're in debt of $272 million. Per capita, that rounds off to right about almost right under $6,000 for every man, woman, child here. It should have been laid out a little bit, but spread out. But I have problems with the company that are doing a lot of these projects. Matter of fact, there's an article, I think yesterday, about the infamous 45th Street, where Lane Industries, if you read it, it's kind of confusing because Lane Industries and MC2, they're both the same companies. So they both had the responsibility of that project on 45th Street. But when I did more analysis, this same company is doing most of all the projects on the island. And if they were that bad on 45th Street, City Council or the staff itself should have raised up their hand saying, wait a minute, why is this company getting all the projects? Is that to tell me that somebody else cannot perform the same duties or do it at a cheaper cost? But again, when you do all the projects, when I asked for information, I got 2 thumb drives. That's a total of 14 megabits of information. Basically, it was said, you want that information? Go find it.
Mr. Crow, I'm going to stay on 45th Street because it's near and dear to my heart. It's where I spend most of my time because I'm there at Tom's Thumb. I have, since the time we moved here in 1991, felt like that there are so many missed opportunities on 45th Street. I feel like it's just a diamond in the rough. Can you describe some ideas on how we sort of bring back that area to life? Because it's just such a jewel, and that's where a neighborhood, it's this phenomenal neighborhood within that. And I'm there all the time, every weekend. But could you share some thoughts about future small businesses moving in there?
Sure. On 45th Street, the old Garland's or Arlen's, what it used to be, I think it was Garland's. That's a nice piece of property that can be developed. Again, 45th Street is, I guess you would rate it as light commercial, but you're limited on what you can do in certain sections of that. What I would have to go back to the committee that I want to form. Hey, what can we do here? What are your ideas? I may be limited on my ideas of what to do. They may not like my ideas, so I may want to ask them, what does the community itself in the district, and we need to develop that to bring more taxes into the city, but not abuse and waste the monies that we would accumulate with the new business that we want to do. But 45th Street, right there on Avenue S, I think stretches to R&a-half. That's where we can develop, and I believe that's owned by the Martini family. I think it's out of litigation now. And hopefully someone would step up. Maybe we can give them tax abatements or some type of tax breaks to develop.
Thank you.
Not to ride this horse all day, but getting back to the bond debt. So, I think it's pretty widely accepted that Galveston has a lot of capital improvement needs, maybe more than your average city. So if you're arguing that the city shouldn't take on more bond debt, how should it finance the capital improvements that most people agree need to be made?
Based on what the numbers I threw out, Galveston having assessed taxes in Galveston of close to like I said, 6.4, 6.3 billion right in there. We have enough money, I believe, to assess what we need as far as the city of Galveston for so long, because whatever reasons, we have not been able to do the repairs to our infrastructure. It's going to be very hard to control flooding. We have subsidence. We have, I don't know if the economic impact of the rising of the sea levels, but it's a problem. I don't know if, but let me get back to talk about revenues. We have the money. It's just not being appropriated properly. When you have cost overruns, every one of the jobs, Mr. Smith, that I've looked at have cost overruns. And you need feasibility studies. I'd rather pay in 45th Street, let's say it's somewhere estimated of $12 million. I'd much rather pay $600,000-700,000 for feasibility study than $4 million. You can see the difference. Same thing happened on Market Street. You had a major project there, and everybody that's born and raised in Galveston knew that they had tracks underneath there, so they had to stop that. They had to reassess it, and here we go, more monies because of change orders. So we have the money, it's just poor planning. And again, I'm really, I'm fortunate to get in to look why one company is given all these jobs. It doesn't make sense to me.
Thank you.
Mr. Quiroga, what issues or opportunities regarding the Port of Galveston and Pelican Island would you make priorities?
Pelican Island, and this is something that the city really needs to look at in conjunction with the navigation district. That bridge is on its last leg. And for years and years and years, because whatever it is, political reasons saying that, hey, I don't want to raise taxes. Well, sometimes, you have to bite the bullet and do what you need to do. But the people that absorb that revenues to build that bridge is from 1st Street all the way, I believe, to 109th Street. It should have been changed. We should have people that are on that board, and to me, it's a solid majority of the people that get on there. But that's another story. I don't really want to get into it. But the city needs to be aware simply because we receive tax revenues from that port. The businesses that are out there pay taxes and so on and so forth. If that bridge was collapsed or we have major damage due to a storm, we're going to have problems. Mm-hmm. They should be thinking right now, thinking right now of building a ferry landing on the other side so that we can have, in case something happens, because we're in the peak of storm season. Excuse me for my list, I have a bad tooth. Okay. So I would say to the city, you need to get revenue somehow to put, just in case, whether we use it or not, it'll save a lot of headaches down the road if we get a major storm.
What about the port?
The port is an asset to the city. And on my closing statements, I'll get to my point about an idea of changing government because it's a drastic change. But again, people say you can't do it. Well, hell, President Trump, they said he wouldn't win. Look, he got in there. So that's an analogy. I'm not saying I promote the man, but anyway, the port is an asset when there were plans. And what hurts the port is the 100 acres that the Port of Houston has gotten. That was sold by George Mitchell to the port, and it's an obstruction. And I believe that I would go to the port and try to work, Port of Houston, try to work a deal to take over that land. And I'm pretty sure they're going to want a healthy sum, but it needs to be developed. It can bring more jobs. What we need higher paying jobs. And I have nothing against the hospitality industry, but they're not higher. Their amount of revenue per individual is very low.
Thank you.
But in the meanwhile, if I can answer a question quick, I want to come back to it.
Sure.
Kind of following on that question, do you believe the Port of Galveston should contribute money toward the project to replace the Pelican Island Bridge?
I think we need to look at all options. We need to look at the city. We need to look at the state. I believe that the navigation district is falling behind where they're a taxing entity. And, I'm very conservative when it comes to spending money and taxation. What needs to be done is they need to get off the couch and more or less spread the wealth out to get the revenue they need to go ahead and finance another bridge. And what I'm saying, it should be spread throughout the county because everyone in the county uses that bridge to get to Pelican Island. So they need to expand the tax base because they are a taxing entity. What the legal bounds and means are to it, I'll have to research to get back and give you a better answer on that. But it needs to be done because that bridge is not going to cost no $91 million. I helped, my last major project was a project and rail system between Victoria, Texas, Rosenberg, Texas, and that was close to $300 million. So you're looking at over $200 million for that project. And yes, we do need rail, and I think it can be expanded. Now, Houston Port, I believe there were some negotiations where they cut 2 or 3 canals to bring ships in and ship them out. I totally disagree with the county getting involved to get investors to offset that cost because that will create other problems. I think if we can solve it here through the navigation district, the city of Galveston, the port, that we should go ahead and take that burden on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How should, in your opinion, how should our committees be appointed to particular boards, i.e. the port, the arts, tourism? In your opinion, should you bring some sort of experience into those positions? Or do you think that the current appointments by council and mayors are appropriate?
Well, I believe most of the boards that are selected should be people that know something about the business. If it's dealing with parks, they should know something about parks. If it's dealing with entertainment, they should be dealing with people that know about entertainment. Port, the same thing. They should all have some kind of background. That would be the first thing that I would look at is what do they bring to the table as far as their knowledge into the business.
Yes.
That's what they need to do. The Port of Galveston as well as the Park Board, they're political footballs. I'm so tired of hearing the port does this, the port does that, we have a guy that's suspended. We need to be cognizant of who we select to put on boards, not for political reasons, but for what is best for the island. That's what we need to look at. Politics needs to be thrown out. And that's how I feel about the boards. We need people that are going to be knowledgeable about that particular area.
Thank you.
Mr. Kroga, this is a question that a lot of our readers asked. It's kind of a combination of a bunch of different questions from readers. Do you support construction of a ring levee or similar structure that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says is essential to the function of a coastal spine storm surge barrier? And if you don't support the ring levee, what are you willing to do to make Galveston more resilient to hurricane, storm threats, and sea level rise?
Well, I'm going to give you a short answer on that. Do I support some kind of a barrier? Yes. Can I tell you, excuse me, right now I don't have all the information. As that project needs to be, again, basically it's going to be foot and bill, the tremendous cost not only to the feds, but to the state as well as to the city and everybody else. Do we need to get industry? Because, up the channel, you've got some of the biggest plants. Exxon is one of the biggest plants in the country, and they will be affected. So to give you a quick answer, yes, I'm supporting of it, but I need to do more data, more analysis and talk with the Corps of Engineers to see what they're doing. And again, it's going to be highly political. We're in a budgetary crunch throughout the country because of this COVID-19. So I can't give you a flat answer of yes, no, other than I do support the system that we need a levy because we do. Now, as far as everything else, we live on a barrier island, and each storm, as everyone knows, is different. I was here during Carla. Carla was really not that bad until the tornadoes went through the center of the island. You had, let's go fast forward, we had Ike. Ike was really nothing. I stayed here on the island. What hurt Ike was the eye coming through 45 going all the way to Houston in the backwater. So that's what hurt there. This last storm, and I'm glad I'm talking about this, is we're not prepared. And the reason I'm saying that is because I've been a safety engineer for 12 years. I've written many plans, safety plans, hurricane evaluation plans. And I'm going to give you a good example. As I was riding around the when you issue an evacuation order, you should let the businesses know because many of my employees took off. So instead of me boarding up my business, I just left it alone and rolled the dice. And luckily, it didn't come this way, and I thank God for that. But
I think
it
you're at
wasn't
your
done properly.
time on that question.
Excuse me?
I think you're at your time on that question.
Time up?
You're at your time, but I'll follow up because I think it's extremely important to know your stance. I'll follow up with, do you support the A&M's recommendation of the coastal barrier? Do you support the ring levy in particular, or both?
Well, again, I'm going to bring that right up short. I don't know what the proposal for Texas A&M.
It's the Ike Dike that's been around, the Ike Dike, the coastal.
And I just don't know that much about the barrier itself. So I can't give you, without looking, because running for this office, I did so much research to prepare myself. That's just one thing that I'm not really looking into because it's so far in the future. And it's the amount of revenue that's going to have to be given to, that we have to get from the feds to make that a reality. So I had really not looked into that. But as far as preparedness of the island for storms, we're lacking. I rode around the island right there on 25th and O&a-half. You have a building that has scaffolds that's 3 foot tall. If that storm would have came here and we would have got the east end of the storm, that thing would have been projectiles blown all over the place. Then you had trees that were cut down. It was all out in the street. You have contractors that need to secure plywood, need to secure 2x4s. Those are projectiles that can really hurt and damage a lot of property and human life. So I was not really impressed. I don't know whatever happened. If they did activate the emergency management office, where it should have been, once a storm hits the Gulf, that should have been activated, and the mayor or mayor pro tem should be given all that data to make those decisions. But to make a decision at 6 o'clock in the morning is not the way to go. And having people that on the buses to get him off the island, and I'm going to be devil's advocate. It's a very hard decision to make because you're looking at thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars being wasted.
Thank you.
Mr. Quiroga, how would you rate the city's management of large events, the official events and the unofficial events that bring lots of people to Galveston over a short amount of time? If you think that management needs to be improved, what would that improvement entail?
Well, the controversy I hear a lot out there is Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras, there's 2 business people down there going back and forth, and I really haven't got into that issue. But as far as maintaining Mardi Gras, in my opinion, we are an island that supports tourism. It's only a week, 4 days. You have the bike rally, and I heard the other day that it brings in over $100 million, which is fine. We need that boost. And the businesses in Galveston needs that boost because it's only a seasonal item. If you do not make your money during the summer openness of the beach and all, you're going to lose out if we don't have these events. And it's just an economic thing. I support it. I think it could be tweaked. I think we need to go down there and talk to the people that are having these discussions. I think there's a lawsuit being presented. I think we can avoid that if we just sit down at the table and discuss it. There's nothing that cannot be dissolved if we have level-headed business people that'll sit down and talk about the issues. But again, I support those. I support the bike rally, and it's only a short period of time. I think we can deal with it with the amount of income that we receive from it. I know there's a lot of old people here that complain about it. I'm 72 years old. I stay at home. It's not that I don't want to go out. If I want to go out, I go out. But let the kids have their fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we're doing pretty good on our time. Maybe 5 more minutes. Give us 45 minutes. I know you'll address a lot of this, but remind the people watching and your constituents, why are you running? You have a good life, and you could just live that and enjoy all the wonderful things about Galveston. What are the things that keep you up at night that you worry about regarding Galveston and our future?
There's a lot of things. Galveston Island, and I remember one time that I'm sure everybody heard this story about Mr. George Mitchell. He told me, Bill, if you make it here, you can make it anywhere. And that's God's honest truth. And it's very hard, and one of the obstacles that I've seen over the years, many people, like I said, don't want to participate in government because of the politics that is involved, whether it's park board, whether it's the port, or any board. It's all politics, and we need to get away from that. We need to decide what is good for the economy for Galveston, what can we do for all demographics in Galveston, all social and economic people that live on the island. There's some people that are well off, and there's some people that are not. We still have an issue of the homeless that are out there. I go to the donut shop down on 21st Street, and there's homeless people sitting out there, and it's just not right. They need help. But what do? I offered to buy a gentleman something to eat. I never refused anyone. But he didn't want it. He'd rather have money for buying cigarettes and alcohol, and I refused to do that. But Galveston needs people that are going to come up to the plate, and sometimes it's hard decisions to make because of the politics and because of favoritism. And there is favoritism. I've seen it. So I wasn't going to do this until people started talking, hey, we need somebody to stand up for us. Of course, me, I said, well, why don't you do it? You're a business guy. And it comes back to this, and I agree with them. They'll retaliate against me. And that's true. I'm going to give you my own experience. Everybody knows I have a hamburger joint called Charlie's Burgers. I made a criticism to the mayor and the city manager at one time, and 2 days later, I had the fire department, I had the electrical inspector, I had plumbing inspector, all come out, and I knew all the gentlemen. And I said, come on in, guys. I keep everything top shelf. And, of course, you know, they apologize for it, but that's something you guys don't hear, but it's true. I've said this to a lot of people, and that's one of the reasons why they don't. I mean, we all have our differences, but we need to sit down and discuss them. Excuse me?
I think you're at the end of your time for that
okay.
question.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
That's all right. Here's a question also from readers. What can or should the city do to help promote creation of middle income or workforce housing on the island?
That's going to be a hard question to answer, because right now what you have going is people that are coming from outside the city, outside the state, investing thousands of dollars on dilapidated homes. We need some kind of program where maybe it's Galveston First, where citizens will go and bid on that, whether it's on the tax rolls, to get them out and offer them some kind of incentive to get that. But right now, the way that the economics are going, people that can afford, they'll come down and offer you ridiculous amounts of money for a 2-bedroom house that's not even worth $40,000, and they'll pay you $150, turn around, upgrade it, and sell it for $285,000. I had a house next door to my sister's property, did exactly that. So to answer your question, it's very hard to get a middle income housing in here because a lot of people are buying homes, and a lot of development that you see going downtown or apartments are being built, and those apartments are being given out more or less of people in need, meaning subsidized housing, which people need a place to live, but it's guaranteed money to the developers that they get this every month. So when you have that, and you have, let's say, brand new apartments down there, they want $1,600 for a 2-bedroom. They can get that because the government's going to subsidize them. So when you see that, other apartments are going to want the same amount of money. And some of those apartments are being let out to subsidized housing. So that's the problem. And it's nothing more than business itself. If I had the extra income to do it, I probably would do the same thing. It's all business. And I don't have a complaint about it, but sometimes it just doesn't seem right that we're providing for one group of people, but our middle class are being overlooked.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Caroga, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I know everybody's so busy, and we really appreciate you taking time to come out. At this point, you'll be able to give a 2-minute closing statement, and we appreciate you.
I want to thank both the Chamber and the Galveston Daily News and the privilege of coming here to the Seabourn facilities. It's a magnificent facility, and I think that people ought to utilize it. I don't know if they lease out for parties or whatsoever. But what I'd like to say in closing, my name is Bill Caroga. I appreciate your vote. And I guarantee that I would put 100% into the district and their needs as well as the needs of the city. I know that there's a lot of things that I wish we could discuss more, but time won't allow, and we'll just have to move on. But if anyone needs any information on the research I did to show the status and the economic situation the city's in, I'll be more than glad to email them a copy, show them where to get the information. And one key place where you need to go is a website called EMA. It's called the Electronic Municipal Market Access. That's where all of the bonds, whether they're certificate of obligation, general bonds, are listed. And you can get a lot of information on there of the status of the city, the population, the biggest taxpayers in the city, the amount of revenue that we all pay. And that's a very good source of information if you really want to know what the city is doing. And we need more people involved. We've got 30,000 people, only 6,000 vote. And if you don't go out and vote to make a difference, it's your fault. But if I do have a couple minutes, I have a minute left. Back to your question about the organization. I like to see if we can combine all entities into one. That's the park board, the wharf board. There's too many fights, cat fights. There's too many different budgets where if the whole structure of the government would change, bring into one and really get the professional people to help create a good form of government without the true politics where we can all sit down at the table and discuss our needs, it'll work. But you got to come together. If you don't, it's not going to work. And I know that there'll be people that'll probably say, oh, that ain't going to work, or they want to keep it separate just because it's power. Park Board has its power, the port has its power, and the city has its power. Navigation District has its power. Until we all come together, it's not going to work.
Thank you, Mr. Caroga.
Thank you so much, and thank you all who have tuned in. Did a great job. And I just wanted to reiterate the mission of the Galveston Regional Chamber of Commerce is to promote and advocate for business and community development. And I wanted to remind you as we go through these and as you go back and visit these videos regarding the district, something that Mr. Caroga said, that You know, it's not just the mayor that leads, it's 4 votes there that are very important. And so consider your district wisely and go and research this. If you have any questions for the candidates, I know you can reach out to any of them. You can certainly reach out to us. Consider how they voted. Consider how they served you during COVID. I know that's one of the things that the chamber does. Also, a reminder is, yes, we promote and advocate for business and community development, but always remember, because there's a misconception about that whether you're your business or your community. But think about that. Our business people live in this community. Their kids go to our schools. And I want you to think, and what we've gone through since March, what it's like when we see the business community fading away. The business community, we are a